Labdien! Sveicināti interneta televīzijā, un šodien mēs turpinām ciklu, kas tiek realizēts projektā Daudzpusīgi risinājumi Sabiedrības izglītošanai, integrācijai nr. 2, ko organizē biedrības Patvērums, Drošā, māja. Šī projekta ietvaros mēs esam jau intervējuši un intervēsim 20 trešo valstu piederīgos. Līdz ar to, tas, ko mēs gribam izdarīt šajā projektā, mēs gribam paskatīties uz Latviju ar citu cilvēku acīm. Kā viņi jūtās šeit, kā viņi nejūtās šeit, kādas ir problēmas, kas viņus uztrauc, kas viņus neuztrauc. Un līdz ar to tas, ko mēs esam paredzējuši šajā projektā, atrast 20 cilvēkus no 20 dažādām valstīm, kas atbilst statusam trešo valstu pilsoņu, kas dzīvo attiecīgi Latvijā. Tas, ko šajā gadījumā es gribētu aicināt jūs skatītājus, vai jūs skatāties mūs pašlaik tiešraidē, vai mūs skatāties pašlaik ierakstā, es gribētu aicināt vienkārši sūtiet, ja gadījumā jūs zināt kādu interesantu cilvēku, kurš dzīvo Latvijā, kurš nav Latvijas valsts pilsonis, un kurš nav arī Eiropas Savienības valsts pilsonis, tad dodiet ziņu uz šajā gadījumā vai nu griežoties Patvērumā Drošas mājas vai Baltijas reģionālajā fondā. Un līdz ar to, saņemot šo informāciju, mēs šo cilvēku uzaicināsim uz interviju un nointervēsim. Un šodien mēs, tātad, kā es teicu, turpinām šo pārraidi, un mēs šodien sarunāsimies jau ar mūsu studijas vīzi.
Today, it's honor that in our guest is a guest from Argentina, Leonardo. And could you, let's say, introduce yourself?
Yes, well, my name is Leonardo. I come from Argentina. I'm in Latvia for 7 months. I'm researching here at the University of Latvia. I'm doing my dissertation topic in the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. And I took Latvia as a case of study. That's why I came here and I'm doing a research stay here at the University of Latvia.
It means that before you arrived in Latvia, do you have some information, let's say, before you arrived, or you have no information?
Yeah, I had a previous experience in Latvia in 2010. I stayed here for 5 months due to some personal issues, and I was working here, not in the academic field. I was teaching languages in a private institute.
Yeah.
But that's how I came closer to Latvian reality, and I had the first insight. So when I came back to Argentina and I started looking for a dissertation topic, I decided to go deeper into Latvian situation.
Yeah. Could you remember, let's say, your first visit to Latvia? What was your first impression about Latvia when you start, let's say, to live here? Because I suppose, especially from Argentina, this is absolutely different type of country, different type of people.
Well, yes and no. I mean, in many ways, it is a very different country with very different traditions, and of course, the influence of weather is very important. I think it's the main thing that anyone coming from South America will notice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that there are some issues that connect this region with many Latin American countries.
Mm-hmm.
I think that during the last 2 decades, they had a similar evolution in some specific fields, and they applied very similar policies, and they went through similar processes. So even when the context is very different and the layout is very different, I almost immediately found some connecting issues with the reality in many South American countries.
Mm-hmm.
For example, one interesting thing is that how society is structured is very similar to the reality of many South American countries.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Latvia will tend to converge to the European or developed European model, but at least when I came here for the first time, many things were similar.
Mhm.
It's possible to say.
And also, if you could remember, let's say, your first time visit here, could you, let's say, mention, let's say, 3 things which surprise you in the positive way?
In the
the
positive,
3 things, except weather,
yeah.
which, let's say, surprise in the negative thing.
Okay. The first, good news first.
Yeah, starting with the good news.
Yeah, the first thing is solidarity of people. I found very helpful and attentive people, and they were some friends of mine, but they were really attentive and helpful and kind, and that was something that was a wonderful surprise.
Yeah.
In the second place, I would say the human capital. I think that people is very well educated compared to many other countries, and they speak at least 2 or 3 languages, and they have a very strong cultural and educational background. I think that's something very, very valuable. And the third thing, it's very personal, but I think it's very interesting and very likable, the ties, the links that Latvian society has with nature and with some traditions coming from the old times, and how they like to spend and respect nature. I think that's something very valuable and interesting that I enjoyed very much. About the things that I didn't like.
Yeah, except weather.
Yeah, except I didn't dislike it actually. The first thing is that sometimes I felt people quite cold and distant.
Yeah.
Even when I found very open and helpful people, at the same time I found very distant and not. I think they are shy, but at the same time, in this shyness, sometimes they are a bit rude, because even when they see that maybe you need something, they will not come to offer help. That's something that in the beginning was a bit shocking. That, I mean, from my background, I'm used to people who will offer help to everyone. So that was the first thing. The second thing, and I know this is a harsh topic, but I think that sometimes, I will not say Latvians, but because it's a very general population, but or very general concept, but many people I met have like a very strong stereotype about themselves and other nationalities. And
Could you explain a little bit?
Yeah.
Because you are very diplomatical, let's say.
No, but for example, it's interesting that they have a very strong negative stereotype in many cases about how Russians are, and of course, not all of them are like that. There are good people and bad people, like in any other in any other nationality. Or how South Americans are, or for example about...
What about South American? What is our stereotype?
Well, most of them think that, for example, in my case, when I usually start speaking to someone, they think that I am a sexual tourist or something like that.
Oh yes, you're this crazy guy, yes, I understand.
I am this kind of cheerful, crazy, guy, and that's a bit... harsh sometimes. That, I feel that people are very distant or very, sometimes even rude, because they think that I'm a sexual tourist, and that's it, which clearly is not my case, because I'm teaching at the university and I'm living here. Yeah. But that's something, you know, they have these very strong stereotypes. And sometimes it's very hard to go over them. Yeah. It's, the same with, as I said, the same with Russians, for example. We actually were discussing that today. And the second, the third thing. I think that Latvians had, my experience is most of the Latvians I met had like a very low confidence. They usually tend to think that things coming from Latvia are not so interesting, so attractive, or what they do is not so interesting. And sometimes that can be a little bit depressing. You're speaking to someone who says, this is from Latvia.
But I suppose this is a difference between the generation, because I suppose if you're speaking with a confidence, this is a more related, what is my personal feeling, that is more, it's like my generation, it's the older generation, not the young generation, or you think that this is also, let's say...
No, I see that also young generation.
Also young generation.
I'm teaching master and bachelor students, and many of them have this perception. It's something that I still can see, and they have a very defensive approach to
really?
issues. Yeah, it's something they are many times prepared to be in a defensive attitude instead of trying to be a bit more open to discussion, and that's something that this defensive attitude sometimes it's pushed away some people because it's a bit annoying, I can say. So I think those are the three things.
And could you tell about your everyday life here? Is it easy? Is it not easy? To organize your everyday life here. What you're doing after the job?
I have a strange schedule. So
really?
I usually go to work at noon and stay until 9 or something. So when normal people are on the street, I usually my work. But one very difficult thing is that if you're a foreigner and you come to Latvia, you have to manage at least 2 languages. That's a handicap. Even when many people are very helpful and they speak English and they will try to help you, you have to manage in the everyday life with Latvian and with Russian, even when, of course, it's not an official language, but many daily things should be done in Russian. So that's in the beginning, it's something that and this has a very special dynamic that it's very hard to understand if you are not here. I mean, this relationship between Russians and Latvians, or Latvians and non-Latvians, and it's something that takes time to understand and to see how it works. And in the beginning, that was something difficult to understand how these things work. After some months and some friends explaining how it is, I kind of become used to that. But for example, a few days ago, a friend of mine came to visit me. He's from Argentina, and it was also very shocking for him. And I saw myself reflected on him, this first approach to see how it works and how some topics are very sensitive and how people can react in a very defensive way. That's something that in the beginning it's complicated. It's really complicated. Nowadays, I think I understand this dynamic. I can manage at least some easy situation in both languages, which I am learning by the way.
You speak, let's say, Latvian and Russian?
I'm learning both of them. And for example, one difficult thing about Latvian is that most of Latvian teachers know how to teach Latvian to Russian speakers. And it's very hard if you're not a Russian speaker to understand a few Latvian grammar issues. So yes, I'm trying to learn both of them. And I think it's I'm learning Russian because I think it's interesting and useful, and I'm learning Latvian because I think it's my obligation to speak Latvian, or at least to understand Latvian if I'm living here.
Okay. Yes, and but also the question you just mentioned that it's very hard to be here in Latvia if you don't know, let's say, Latvian and Russian language. But could you imagine, let's say, there are other people, for instance, from Argentina, who don't speak English and who don't speak Latvian and Russian? Is it possible to survive?
I think it would be very difficult. I think if you don't speak English, Latvian, or, well, being honest, if you don't speak English, Latvian or Russian, I think it's not very easy that you will come to Latvia. Or you will come with a touristic group and you will just do some touristic tour. But I think that if you decide to come to an exotic destination, for us, you might have at least background in English, and you have to have a little idea of how it is, because otherwise it would be very difficult to survive.
But with English language, is it possible to survive here?
Yeah.
It's easy to survive, or also
I would say it's okay. I would say it's okay. It would be difficult to find a job. I did in my first time. I was teaching languages, but even without speaking any Latvian or Russian, I managed to find a job. It was like normal job. I could live. But if you don't speak English, then it's very difficult. One very silly example. The first time I came to Latvia, I went to a supermarket. I was at a friend's house, and they asked me to go to a supermarket to buy milk. So I got into the supermarket, I saw the fridge where milk was supposed to be, and I found 10 different products which were like milk, but they were not milk, and I had no idea which one was milk. And they had very strange names like kefir, spiers, and it was very hard to connect that with whatever I knew before. And after that, I learned that milk is piens. But this is like a very simple and small issue, but there are still big cultural differences. And if you don't manage to speak English, which is quite widespread here, it would be very difficult. It would be very difficult.
You also mentioned this is a very big cultural difference. Maybe you could also a little bit explore, let's say, this.
One thing that comes to my mind is in South America we all have an opinion about almost everything, and we consider that it's polite to express your opinion. Actually, if you don't express your opinion, people may think that you are hiding something. And here in Latvia, it's very hard to get someone's opinion. You have to know him or her, and you have to be confident, and I think then you will really know his or her opinion about a specific topic. And I think that's something that in the beginning was a bit shocking, because I felt that people didn't trust me or didn't want to speak to me, and after that I understood that even between Latvians do that. So that was something that was a bit shocking. I mean, it took some time to get used to that. And I don't know, there are some other things that are different, but I know drinking culture is completely different.
Yes, what you are drinking, what we are drinking. Or you're not drinking, let's say.
Yeah, I drink.
Piens.
No. Alcoholic beverage. But for us, this is a kind of a stereotype. For us, a drunk person is a funny person. Someone who could be funny, and we will just make fun of him or her, and that will be fine. And here I think it's something a bit more dramatic, and I think it has a different conceptualization. I think it has different meaning, and that's something that in the beginning I didn't know how to deal with that. And actually it was, this is a confession, but in the beginning I found that many drunk people wanted to fight with me only because I was looking different. And that happened.
Strange.
It was not for me during some time. but this kind of, and actually this is connected to what I was saying before. This comes out of this stereotype of, okay,
Yeah.
I look darker than Latvians, so
Yeah.
they might think that I'm a sexual tourist, and they are drunk, and they don't want sexual tourists here, so they will fight me. And that was a dynamic that in the beginning was a bit hard to understand and to manage. And after that, I knew how to deal with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the cultural differences I might say that I can find. Like,
Okay, then I would like also, let's say, a little bit ask about our bureaucracy. Because in this case also there are similarities or
Yeah.
not similarities, or how could you describe, let's say, our, let's say, bureaucratic approach to you as a foreigner?
Yeah, the thing is that I come from a very, very bureaucratic country.
You come from
yeah,
very bureaucratic.
yeah, Argentina, South America, it's a very bureaucratic region. So in that way, I think, I would say that Latvia is even better than South American countries, than most of South American countries.
But
No,
not but.
no. Of course, it's a smaller country, so that state is smaller than in most of South American countries. So in that way, I didn't have a bad experience because I come from a more difficult background. So
Yeah.
I really don't have any complaint about that. I think it's, at least my experience, it worked as far as it should work. And maybe it takes some time, but
And let's say this process with residence of permit, it was how it was for you? It was
for me,
complicated or not?
no, actually for
complicated?
me it was very easy because I have Spanish citizenship as well. I have double citizenship, so I stayed here just as a Spanish citizen. So
In this case, it's, you avoid, let's say, a lot of, let's say, headaches, I suppose.
yeah, it was much easier. I mean, I have a Schengen area permit residence, so I really didn't have any trouble about that. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how it is, how it would be if I were only Argentinian here. I guess it would be more difficult, but I can really not say anything about that.
Yeah, and finally, let's say, if you could imagine, let's say, if somebody from Argentina, let's say, who has no experience, let's say, in Latvia, would like, let's say, to come to Latvia, what kind of advice you would give such a person? Don't come?
No, I mean, I think I would not say someone not to go to anywhere. I mean,
of course. Yeah.
But
You should take into account first, second.
yeah, of course, I would say warm clothes. That's the no. I think that I think it's a very interesting place to come. Okay, I have a special interest, so for me it's
Sure.
yeah. Actually, I kind of make joke with my friends, and I say that for me being in Latvia now is like for a 12-year-old boy being in Disney World, because it's very interesting, the process, and it's very interesting for me to be here during this process. The first thing I would advise is to be completely aware and attentive with the national issue, about nationality, citizenship, language. Very important of this. That's for sure the first thing I would advise. Because it's something that for us it works in a complete different way, and you can save many awkward situations if you pay attention to that. And the second thing would be you're going to a different country, and you should not try to reproduce what you do in your country. Because here it's very difficult. And even when Latvians are helpful, or many people are helpful, there are some things that work in a complete different way, and you have to be prepared to have a different, more distant and bit colder contact with people, at least for some time.
Yeah.
For some time that would be completely different. And in the first time that can be frustrating. That can be really frustrating, and after that you will get used and you will get closer or not. But that's something that I think it's very important to have in mind, because that works in a different way.
Okay, thank you very much, Leonardo. Thank you very much for coming, and I wish you success with your study and with your research.
Thanks for the invitation. It was my pleasure.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.